She had rehearsed the introduction 100 times while standing in the mirror, holding her folder tightly against her chest, reminding herself that this wasn't just another interview. This was her chance to finally rebuild the future she had lost 3 years ago. A future she had once imagined with him. She stepped out of the bus, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, and walked toward the towering glass building that reflected the morning sun like a challenge. Her heart pounded, but she whispered to herself that she had survived far worse than an interview. She had survived heartbreak, betrayal, single motherhood, sleepless nights, and the weight of a memory she had tried so hard to bury. Inside the lobby, the receptionist gave her a polite smile as she wrote her name on the visitor sheet. "You're here for the assistant manager interview?" the woman asked, and she nodded. "Take the elevator to the 10th floor. Conference room 3. She thanked her softly and turned toward the elevator, her heels tapping against the marble floor in a rhythm she wished would calm her nerves. As she stepped inside and the doors closed, she let out a shaky breath. This job meant stability. It meant a steady income. It meant a better life for her daughter. She pressed her hand to her abdomen instinctively, a habit she developed during her pregnancy when she felt alone and uncertain. She thought she had healed enough to move forward, enough to stand tall in any situation. She had no idea that fate had decided otherwise. When the doors slid open, a gust of cold office air hit her face. She adjusted her folder and walked toward the conference room. The hallway was quiet except for distant typing sounds and ringing phones. She stopped outside the door, took one steadying breath, and pushed it open. Inside, the room was modern, sleek, filled with glass walls and neatly arranged chairs. But none of that mattered. Because the moment she stepped in, her eyes fell on the man standing near the head of the table, flipping through a stack of resumes. Her heart froze, her fingers trembled, her breath lodged in her throat like she had collided with a ghost. It was him, the man who had once sworn he loved her, the man who had held her hands under the streetlight and promised he would never leave. The man who disappeared the moment she told him she was pregnant, blocking her number, vanishing without explanation, leaving her to cry on hospital floors and hide her pregnancy from neighbors who gossiped. The man who happened to be the father of her daughter. And he was standing there, whole, polished, confident, like he hadn't shattered her life 3 years ago. He looked up at the sound of the door. For a moment, nothing moved. His eyes widened with stunned recognition, followed by something else: guilt, confusion, panic. "Ava," he whispered. Her name on his lips cut her like a blade. She forced her expression to remain neutral. "Good morning," she said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the storm inside her. He swallowed, glanced at the other interviewers entering the room, a senior HR woman and a board member, and stepped back to take his seat. She sat across from him, keeping her eyes on the HR representative as the interview began. "Tell us about yourself, Ms. Avery," the woman said. She took a deep breath. This wasn't the time for emotions. She had to be strong. For her daughter, for her future. "I graduated with honors in business administration. I have worked 3 years in retail management and customer relations. I am hardworking, committed, and always willing to grow." But as she spoke, she felt his gaze burning into her. Memories she had tried to bury resurfaced, how he held her as they dreamed about a future, how he promised he'd support her no matter what, and how he suddenly changed when she'd told him she was expecting. She remembered waiting for him outside his apartment only to find the place empty, his phone off, his friends refusing to tell her where he went. She had cried until her body felt hollow. She had begged him in messages he never read. She had gone through labor without a hand to hold. Now he was here, listening to her speak like she was a stranger. "This is impressive," the HR woman said, scanning her file. "Why did you leave your previous position?" She didn't want to expose her pain. But she also refused to lie. "I became a single mother," she said calmly. "And I needed some time to stabilize my personal life. Now I'm ready to continue my career." His jaw tightened. The HR woman nodded sympathetically. The older board member murmured, "Your resilience is admirable." She thanked him softly. The rest of the questions passed in a blur. She answered calmly, kept her focus, and avoided looking at the man who once left her carrying his child. But she sensed every flicker of emotion on his face: regret, shock, disbelief. When the interview ended, The HR representative smiled warmly. We'll notify you of the results soon. You did very well. She stood up, thanked them, and walked toward the door. But before she could step out, his voice called shakily, "Ava, wait." She stopped but didn't turn. "Please," he whispered. The HR team had already left for the next candidate. The room was nearly empty. She gathered her strength and finally faced him. He looked older than she remembered, tired eyes, a face strained with guilt. "I didn't know it was you applying," he said softly. "That wouldn't have changed anything," she replied. "Ava, listen, I didn't abandon you because I wanted to. It wasn't what it looked like." She laughed once, a bitter sound. "You disappeared. Completely. No message. No explanation. I cried for weeks. I begged you to come back. You left me alone when I was carrying your child. What explanation could possibly justify that?" He inhaled shakily and ran a hand through his hair. "My father threatened to cut me off from the family business. He found out about our relationship, and about the pregnancy. He said you were a distraction, that you were after my money. He forced me to leave town and sent me abroad to handle a branch transfer. I wanted to contact you. I swear. But he took my phone, disconnected everything. I was stuck in a foreign country with no way to reach you. By the time I found a way to come back, I thought I didn't deserve to show my face again." Her eyes stung, but she refused to let tears fall. "You could have tried harder," she whispered. "I know," he said, voice breaking. "I know I failed you. I failed our child, but I'm here now. I want to fix it. I want to meet her. She doesn't know you exist," she cut him off. "And I don't know if I want you in her life yet." He stepped closer slowly, as if afraid she might vanish. "Ava, I want to be a father. I want to support both of you. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but let me try." She shook her head. "This isn't about forgiveness. This is about trust. And you broke that the moment you walked away." He swallowed. "If you get this job, we'll have to work together. Are you okay with that?" She lifted her chin with quiet strength. "I can handle anything. I didn't break when you left. I won't break now." She walked past him, leaving him standing in the doorway. But before she exited, she turned back and said, "If I get the job, I expect professionalism. Nothing more." Then she walked out of the building. 2 days later, she received a call. "Congratulations," the HR woman said. "You've been selected. You start Monday." She exhaled deeply. This was good. This was needed. On her first day, she walked into the office with confidence. The staff greeted her warmly. She worked hard, handled reports efficiently, and kept her communication professional. He respected her boundaries. No personal questions, no emotional conversations, only work. But she noticed the small efforts he made, forwarding her documents early, sending gentle reminders instead of harsh notes, making sure she wasn't overwhelmed. Weeks passed. One day, she found a stuffed bunny toy on her desk with a note, "For her. I don't want to intrude, but please give her this. Adam." She stared at the toy, feeling her heart soften just a little. She allowed him short updates about their daughter, her age, her favorite color, how she loved drawing. His eyes lit up each time, like he was discovering pieces of a life he never got to witness. Eventually, she agreed to let him meet her in a public park. He brought a small backpack filled with crayons and storybooks. When their daughter approached curiously, he knelt and showed her a book. She smiled shyly and sat beside him. Watching them from a distance, her chest tightened, not with pain this time, but with a quiet, cautious hope. Days turned into months. He never overstepped. He never pushed. He showed up with consistency, patience, gentleness. Slowly, trust rebuilt itself. Not forced, not rushed, just grown through effort and sincerity. One evening after work, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, she stood beside him outside the office. "You've changed," she admitted quietly. "I had to," he replied. "Losing you was the worst mistake of my life." She looked at him, the man she once loved, the man who broke her, the man who was now trying to piece things back together brick by brick. "I don't know what the future holds," she said softly. "But you're trying, and that matters." He nodded, eyes warm. "I'll keep trying. For you, for her." She didn't promise anything. She didn't need to. Life would unfold at its own pace. But as she walked home that evening, she realized something. She had stepped into that interview searching for a job, never expecting to find the past waiting for her. Yet instead of breaking her, it had given her a new beginning, a chance to rise stronger, to set boundaries, to choose what was right for her child, and maybe, just maybe, to heal an old wound. And for the first time in years, the future didn't scare her. It felt hers again.